Good morning everyone. Welcome to the Mercury Virtual. Hope you are doing good. Today I am going to continue with the same module, that is the Office Solution Development, and the same chapter, that is the Office Solution Development. Then moves to the today's topic, that is the code behind the document. So let's start with the session. Let's start with the session, that is how to use the code behind the document. And what about Larry? How are you, Larry? So first of all, how are you, Larry? Hello, are you able to hear me, Larry? Are you able to hear me, Larry? My voice is audible to you? Hello. Yeah, my voice is audible to you, Larry? Hello, Larry. My voice is audible. Okay. So there is no disturbance in the voice, right? So uh, first of all, Happy New Year, Larry. So let's start with the session. Let's start with the session that is part of the Office Solution Development, right? So let's continue with the session. So VSTO, that is a VSTO that also supports the provision, that also supports the procedures that is used in the VSTO. So it is used the code that is used behind a document that requires that the developer uses the classes generated in the VSTO project. So whatever the classes, whatever the code that is used, that is required in the VSTO project, that is generated in a VSTO project, that have pre-hooked up context and the pre-hooked up event. So there are two types of parts that is available in the VSTO project. One is the pre-hooked up context, one is the pre-hooked up events. And these classes are known as the code behind the classes because they are code, or they have a code that is associated with a particular document or worksheet. So they are also known as the code behind the classes because they have a code, or they are associated with the code that is used with a particular document or the worksheet. In MS Word there is only one code that is in when we develop the MS Words, there is only one word, or there is only one code that is developed, that is used behind the class, that is corresponding to the document. But in Excel there are multiple documents, there are multiple codes that is used behind the classes, one for the workbook, then one book for the worksheet or the chart sheet in the workbook. So in MS Word there is only one code that is required or that is used. In Excel there are multiple codes that is used behind the classes, one for the workbook only, and one for the worksheet or the chart sheet. Whatever we use in the workbook, that coding will be used for the worksheet or the work or chart sheet, right? The first time your code runs in a VSTO code behind a document project is when the office raises the startup event. So whenever the office raises the startup event, this is the case that is handled by any of the code that is used behind the classes created for you. So first time your code runs in a VSTO code that is runs behind the document project when the office raises the startup event, that is handled by any of the code. So that is handled by any of the code that is generated by the classes, and VSTO provides context via the base class of the code behind the class you are writing code in. So whatever the context, whatever the code that is available, that have a base class of the code that is used behind the classes that you are writing code in. A VSTO code that is used behind the class customizing an Excel worksheet. So it is required by the Excel worksheet that derives from the base class that contains all the methods, properties and events of a Excel worksheet. So it is desirable to use the virtual worksheet that is used that contains all the methods, properties and events of an Excel worksheet, that enables you to write the code such as this in the startup of the worksheet class. So this code will be used, or this enable, that is the code behind the class, will be enabled to use the classes as we do in the startup of the worksheet class. So that is used in the startup of the worksheet class, that is used with the VSTO coding part. So in summarize, if I summarize the part, so in MS Word there is only one code that is used, that is known as the code behind the class. In Excel there are two code that is developed. So one code that is developed is for the workbook, and one code is used for the worksheet or the chart sheet. And this is one of the example, that is how to represent the code. So this is message box.show, then string.format. So this is the message box.show means the message will be showing up with the help of the message box.show. Then string dot format, that is the string is available because it is a string, that is a set of characters, so this is required as a string dot format. So what is the format? That is 0 is the sheet name, so this is available as a 0 is the sheet name. Then this dot name, so whatever the content that is available in the name, that is represented by the dot operator, that is fetched by the dot operator, that is this dot name. That is 0 is the sheet name, then this dot name. By using this node dot name, you are referring to the name property of the Excel worksheet. So that means whenever we use the this dot name, you are referring to the name property. So there is a name property that is referred by, or that is referred in the Excel worksheet environment, that is object that is inherited from the base class. So whatever the object that is inherited from the base class, that is required by the this dot name. This is one of the code that is that is generated, that is a VSTO or VSTO Excel workbook customization. That is a listing 2.6 that shows a VSTO code that is used behind the class or an Excel worksheet. In addition to the startup and the shutdown events or methods in the class, so in addition to the startup and the shutdown events or the method that is used in the class, that is used in the code behind the class, there is also a generated method known as the internal startup. So there is also a generated method along with the startup and the shutdown event. That generated method is known as the internal startup. You should not put any of your code in this internal startup method because it is auto generated by the VSTO, and modifying it can break the Visual Studio support for the code. So whatever the whatever the code that is generated by, that is auto generated by the VSTO code, that is modifying or that is modified by the Visual Studio support for the code behind the classes. Instead, you can you start up your code, or you start up the code that should go in the startup event handler. So instead of that, you should also start up the code. You should also start the code that is available in the VSTO handler. So along with the startup and the shutdown event, there is also a code that is available that is known as the internal startup. So that is used for starting up the code, that is used to break down the Visual Studio support for the code behind the classes. And instead of that, your startup code should go in the startup event handler. VSTO code behind document classes should use partial classes to hide some additional code generated by the VSTO. So whatever the VSTO code that is generated by the VSTO document, so VSTO code behind the document classes also use the partial classes to hide some additional code generated by the VSTO. So whatever the code that is generated by the VSTO, that is handled by the VSTO code, that is used in the document, that is used as a partial class to hide some additional code generated by the VSTO. That means whatever the VSTO code that is generated in this one, so this uses a partial class to hide some additional code that is generated by the VSTO. And this is the full-fledged coding that is available for the VSTO Excel workbook customization. So this is the full-fledged code that is available with this one, that is the VSTO Excel workbook customization. So first of all, these are the header files, that is the using the system. So this is one of the header file that is used, that we are using the system. That means this is the header file, that is the using the system. Then using the system dot data. That means we are also using the system. We are also getting the system dot data, that is whatever the data that is available in this one. So system dot data is used, that is the system dot data. Then using system dot drawing. So we are also using the drawing concept, that we are able to draw the concepts like line, graphs, polygons, whatever the tool that we are using. That is listed by the drawing, that is using system dot drawing. Then using system dot windows dot forms. That means it is generated the code, it is generated the windows, that is the window dot form. Then using the Microsoft, or using Microsoft.visualstudio.tools.application.runtime. That is, it is using the Microsoft.visualstudio.tools.application.runtime. That is, a Visual Studio is used. Then there are also tools that is used in the Visual Studio. Then application, then runtime. That means the applications are also running in the Visual Studio. That is used by the tool. That is, so it is used as a Visual Studio.tools.application.runtime. That means it is using the tools as in a runtime environment. Then using Excel, that is equals to the Microsoft Office dot interop. Now this is these four lines are the header file that includes which system is used and which we can say the software is used, that is a Visual Studio that contains the tools, application and so on. Now next part is using Excel, that is which Excel environment is used for this one, that is a Microsoft Office dot interop dot Excel. So this is the Excel name that is used with this one, that is Microsoft dot Office dot interop dot Excel. So that is a new Excel, or that is Excel environment that is used in this one. Then using the Office equals to Microsoft.office.core. So that means this is the Office environment that is used in this one, that is the Microsoft.office.core. So it is using the, or in this code we are going to use the Microsoft.office.core. That means the core environment is used for the Office. Then next is the namespace Excel workbook 1, that is a new function will be used, that is a namespace Excel workbook 1 that includes or that contains public partial class sheet 1. That means a public partial class sheet 1 is used in this one, that is a public partial class sheet 1. So there is a public, then there is a partial, then there is a class sheet 1. So in the function that is used, the next code or the next part is the public, that is for the public part, then partial, then class sheet 1, then private void sheet 1 startup. So one of the event, one of the startup event is used, startup function is used, that is a private void sheet 1 startup. So sheet 1 startup event is used, that contains in the object sender, or that are used as a object sender and the event argse. So that is a sheet 1 underscore startup, that is startup event is used. So that is a private void sheet 1 startup, that is the sender and the event args, and this is the initial entry point. Then this code gets run first when the code behind is created, then the context is implicit in the sheet 1 class. Then after this the startup event that is used, that is a message box dot show, that is a message box dot show for the printing part, that is code behind the document running. So this is print as it is, that is the code behind the document running. Then message box dot show, then that is string dot format. So the string dot format is also used for this one. That 0 is a sheet name, and this dot name, the same that we have studied recently right now, that is a this dot name. So this is saying 0 is the sheet name, then after 0 is the sheet name, then it is used as a this dot name. So this is used for the printing part, this is print as it is, and this is printing the in a proper format, that is 0 is a sheet name, then this dot name. Then private void sheet 1 shutdown. So this is the private void sheet 1 startup event will be used, then the private void sheet 1 shutdown. So one is a startup event, one is a shutdown event that is used in this one, that is a void sheet 1 shutdown event. Then object sender event argse, that is the object sender is used, then there is event argse. Again the two arguments are used, that is the sender and the that is the event args. So first of all, there is a startup event that is used for the starting of the code, or that is used for initialize the code that is available, that is a startup event. Then there is a shutdown event, that is object sender event argse. Now next is the reason VSTO designer generated code. So this is the reason that contained in the VSTO designer generated code. So first of all, there is a summary, then required method for the designer support that do not or that does not modify, then the contents of this method with the code editor. So whatever the content that is available of this method, that is used with the content or that is used with the code editor, then the summary will be close. So that means the summary contains the required code or required method that is used for the events or that is used for the designer support, and then the content of the this method that is the code editor. So whatever the content that is used with the code editor, that is available with this one. Then private void internal startup. So the new function will be used, that is a public void or the private void internal startup. So internal startup event, again it is using. Now this is the coding for the internal startup. So this is the startup event, then there is a shutdown event, then there is a reason that is designed by the designer, that is used by the designer, that is a private void internal startup. Then this dot startup, that means that this dot startup event will be used, that is plus equals to new system dot event handler. So this dot startup contains the new system dot event handler, and what is contained in the event handler, that is a sheet 1 underscore startup. So the startup event will be used, that is a new system dot event handler, that is a sheet 1 underscore startup. Then the sheet this dot shutdown, then the shutdown event will be used, that is plus equals to new system dot event handler, then sheet 1 underscore shutdown. So one is a startup event, that is the event handler, that is the event that is generated, that is handled whenever any event will be occurred. The new system dot event handler, that is the sheet 1 underscore shutdown. So one is a startup event that is generated by the internal startup, one is a shutdown event that is generated by the shutdown event. Then there is the end region. So this is the starting of the region, this is the ending of the region. This is the closing curly braces, this is another closing curly brace. So this is one curly brace that is closed for this one, for the namespace, one curly brace will be closed for the public, and that is the end of the region. So that is how to use or how to modify or what is the, or how to use the VSTO or VSTO Excel workbook customization. This is the main part, that is how to use the code behind a document. So this is the code that is generated, that is used for the VSTO Excel workbook customization, that is how to customize the Microsoft Excel workbook customization. Then VSTO code behind a document in the Excel, that is the next part. Next generated code is the VSTO code that is behind the document in the Excel, that is how to use the VSTO code that is behind a document in the Excel. So this is the VSTO code that is used, that is Excel workbook customization. Now how to use the VSTO code, that is how to use the drag and drop facility, that is a VSTO code that is behind a document in the Excel. So in this section we create some simple code behind a document in Excel using VSTO. So this is used as a coding, this is used as a coding part that is used behind a document in Excel using the VSTO. First start up VSTO. So the first step is the start up the VSTO, then choose the file, then go to the new, then go to the project menu item. So first of all you have to start up the VSTO, then choose the file option, then go to the new, then click on the project menu item. As you have seen previously, navigate to the office mode or office node under the Visual C# root. So this is the new project that is available. So go to the project type, that is the office node that is available in the Visual C#. So first of all go to the file, then go to the new, then go to the project. Whenever go to the project, the new project window will be opened. Then you have to click on the Visual C#, then you click on the office. If you have already if you already have a workbook that you want to add the VSTO customization code behind, you can specify its location in the dialog box shown in the 2.8 that appears when you click OK in the new project window. So whenever you click on the new project window, this is a new environment that is used. So this is using the new project dialog to create a new project window. The time you will just start from the scratch, create a blank workbook. So create a new blank workbook for this one. So this is the first step, that is you go to the office, then you have to select from the available template, that is the Visual Studio installed templates. Then there is the Excel workbook that is used in this one. Then there is a Word document, there is a Word document that is available in this one. This is the Excel workbook. Then there is a Word document. So this is a name, that is the Excel workbook 1. Then Visual Studio or Visual Studio projects. Then create the new session, that is creating the new session for this one. So this is Excel workbook 1. Then Visual Studio projects, that is a location. Then the solution is create the new solution, that is creating the new solution with this one. So now we have to give the name, then give the location, then give the solution, then click on the OK button. Whenever you click on the OK button, this is mentioned here over here. When you click on the OK button, a new project will be available as a blank document. And this you also have the various tool to select the office wizard, that is Excel workbook 1. So this will be created in this form. So select a document for your application. So you have to select your document for your application. So that is the first question, that is what kind of document do you want to use. That is mean what kind of document that you want to use, that is creating a new document. So you have to prefer the create the new document whenever you use for the first time. The second radio button, so these are the two radio button that is used. One radio button is creating a new document, the second is copy an existing document. So one is create a new document, so you have to give the name of the new document that is available over here. The next is copying an existing document, you have to give the path to the existing document if you are using the existing document that is already built, that is already created. Otherwise you have to click on the create a new document and you have to give the name of the new document, or the name, or the, or the new Excel sheet that is available in this one, that is the name Excel workbook 1. Now click OK to add the document that you want to add the document to your project. So whenever you click on the OK, this document will be added to the project. This is selecting the workbook to associate with the code behind. After we have created the project, the designer view appears as shown in this one. So this is the designer view that appears, that that shows as Excel workbook 1. So this is the designer view that is used in this one. So this is the Excel workbook 1.xls. So these are the various column heading, these are the various row heading that is used in this one. That is the design view for the VSTO Excel code behind. Now notice a few interesting things in the figure 2.9. So this is the figure 2.9. You have to notice the various codes or various things that is considered in this one. That is, we have created one view, one we can say name that is given as a Excel workbook 1. So we have created the Excel workbook 1 that is open in the Visual Studio or Microsoft Visual Studio. Now let's talk about this one. Now, first Excel is running inside the Visual Studio 2005 as a designer. Now, the Excel is using in between the running inside the Visual Studio 2005 as a designer, just the same as a Windows Form designer that would when developing a Windows project or Windows Form project. That is used with the Windows Form designer, that is used when develop a Windows Form project that is available in Windows Designer. Now, second, look at the menu bar shown in the figure 210. So this is the menu bar that is available in the figure 210. VSTO merges the Visual Studio menus, that is a build, debug and so on. So there is a build, debug and so on, that is environment, that is a VSTO code that merges with the Visual Studio or Visual Studio menus, that is a build, debug and so on, and the Excel menu items, that is format, data and so on together. So there is an Excel menu item that is also used with this one, that is the format, data and so on. Menu item that appears in both Visual Studio and Excel, that is the tools, for example merge by adding a sub menu to the Visual Studio menu. So that is available with the Visual Studio menu, that is used with the sub menu to the Visual Studio menu. That means it is appeared as a menu item. So this is the menu item, there are various tools. This is a Microsoft Office Excel tools, that is spelling, research, error checking, speech. So these are the various tools that is used in this one. So this is that is available in the 210. So VSTO merges the Visual Studio menus like build, debug and so on. and the Excel menu items like format, data, and so on together. So it is also using the Excel menu items. So it also merges the Visual Studio menus like build, debug, as well as the Excel menu items. So it merges both the applications, that is the Studio and the Excel. Menu item that appears in both the Visual Studio and the Excel tools, for example, merges by adding a sub-menu to the Visual Studio menu. So whatever the menu item that appears in both the Visual Studio and the Excel, that is used by merging the menu item to the Visual Studio items on menus such as the Microsoft Office Excel tool. So that is used in the Microsoft Office Excel tools that can be selected to see the Excel tools menu. So whatever the tools menu, whatever the data that is available with this one, whatever the data that is available with this one, that is used with the Office or Microsoft Office Excel environment, that is a part of the Microsoft Office environment. So this is the Office tool that is available with this one. That is there are various tools that is used in this. That is a Microsoft Office tool like spelling, research, spelling, grammar, and so on. That is the merging of the Visual Studio and the Excel item. So this is the we can say the menu that is generated, or this is a showpiece that is generated, that how the tools of the that is how the tools of the Visual Studio and how the tools of the Excel will be merging up into one. That is the merging of the Visual Studio and the Excel menus. Now third, notice in figure 2.9 that the toolbox contains a new category, that is Excel control. So in this there is also Excel control that is used as this one. These controls are also very useful whenever we use, that is whenever we use the Excel. So these tools are very effective in using the Excel environment, used in the Excel part. So that is used in the Excel part. So that is how to use in the Excel part, that is Excel environment. So that is known as the Excel controls. When designing a document using Visual Studio, so whenever we design a document using the Visual Studio, you can also create the named ranges and the list objects using the Excel menu item that is familiar to the Excel users. So whenever the Excel users will be using, they are using the name ranges and the list objects using the Excel menu item. There are various Excel menu items that is available with this one, that is familiar to the Excel users, or the toolbox idioms familiar to the Visual Studio users. So whatever the scenario that is using, they are using the Excel users, or the toolbox idiom that is familiar to the Visual Studio users. So one is the Excel menu item that is used for the Excel users. One is the toolbox idioms that is used for the Visual Studio users. Now fourth, notice that the properties window shows the properties of the selected object. So whatever the selected object, whatever the selected content that is used in this case, that is sheet 1. So fourth, notice that the properties window also shows the properties of the content or the properties of the selected object. For example, in this sheet 1, so there are various properties that is available for sheet 1. So this is selected as a sheet 1, and this is the properties for the sheet 1 only, that is a Microsoft.Office or Microsoft Office.tools.excel workbook. That is the properties of the sheet 1, because the by default the current working sheet is a sheet 1. You can also rearrange the data, you can also sort the data that is available in this one by using the agent. This is another by using the duplicate, this is the comment, then save. So these are the various options that is used in the, these are the various properties that is used in the sheet 1. That is the Microsoft.Office.tools.excel workbook, that is the name, or design phase, that is the name, sheet 1 miscellaneous. Then next is the project scenario. That is, what is the main project scenario that is used in this one, that is the miscellaneous part. The name, that indicates the name used in the code to identify the object. So whatever the name object that is used in this one, that is used to identify, or that is used to identify the object. That is the indicates the name that is used in the code to identify the object. Now look at the menu bar, that is this is done as a designer. Now for that showed the properties of the windows. You can use the properties window to edit the properties of the Excel objects in the same way that you can edit the properties of the controls and the forms in a Windows form project. So this is the same as you do if for the editing the properties of the controls or edit the properties of the controls and the forms in a Windows form environment. So you gave this one, you take this one for making the object that is audible or that is accessible to the object. So fifth, notice that the Solution Explorer has 4 classes. So there is a Solution Explorer that is used has 4 classes in it already. So there are 4 classes that is used with the Solution Explorer that is a part of the Excel workbook 1. Each underlined Excel worksheet and the workbook object is represented by a .NET class. That is, each underlined Excel and each underlined workbook object is represented by a .NET class that you can extend and customize. That is extendable and that is customizable as per the requirements. So that is a customize and represent by the .NET class that is a part of the Solution Explorer that has already have a 4 classes in it, and each underlying Excel worksheet and the Excel workbook object is represented by a .NET class. That is, whatever the Excel workbook object that is represented by the .NET class that you can extend and customize. So in simple terms, Solution Explorer has 4 classes that is used in this one. So this is the Solution Explorer. There are 4 classes. Again, that is the properties, then references, then Excel workbook 1 dot XLS. So there are the different properties. There are different classes that is used in the Solution Explorer that is only used for the Excel workbook 1. So in simple terms, this is the Excel framework that is used inside the Visual Studio. These are the various menus that is used, and these all menus can work. There are multiple options that is used in this one. These are the various toolboxes that is used in the Excel workbook 1. This is the general, then Excel controls, dialog, component, data, common control, and the all windows form. That is a toolbox. Then there is a this is a worksheet that is available in this one. There are 3 sheets, and by default currently working sheet is the sheet 1. Then this is a Solution Explorer, that is a workbook, that is the first project. Then properties, references, Excel workbook 1.xls, then sheet 1.cs. That is a sheet 1.cs means there is a sheet 1 dot coding part that is available in this one. That is a sheet 1.cs. Then sheet 2 .cs, then sheet 3.cs, then this workbook dot. So there is the Excel workbook 1 that contains 3 parts, that is the sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, and this workbook dot cs. So this is the Excel workbook 1 environment that is used inside the Visual Studio or Microsoft Visual Studio. No. CS is the coding part that is used in this one, that is known as the code source. CSS is different, that is a cascading style sheet. But CS is the means if I want to represent the coding part, that is a code source, that is a CS. Alright. Each underlying worksheet and the workbook is represented by the .NET class that you can extend and customize. And as you make changes to the document in the designer view, the code behind update automatically. So whenever you have any changes in the Excel workbook environment, so if there is any change, that change is automatically reflected by the code that is using the code. So whenever we make any changes, so that changes will be automatically saved, that updates will be automatically saved in the .NET class. For example, drag a list object from a toolbox onto the sheet 1 designer and drag it to be 10 rows by 4 columns. So that means simply drag the list object. So if you want to create the list in the Excel workbook environment, in the Excel worksheet environment, you simply drag a list object from the toolbox on the sheet 1 designer and draw it to be 10 rows by 4 columns. That is drawing it by the 10 rows and the 4 columns as shown in the figure 211. So this is the figure 211. So you have only drag the Excel control. So this is the list object. We simply drag it by here. That means putting up this and drag it over here. So when you drag it, the 4 columns will be generated with the 10 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 rows and the 4 columns that is generated with this one. Now see, there are, yes, it will affect, that means it will automatically affect the changes that is available in the Excel workbook environment. So automatically update means the main file will also be updated whenever we use the Excel Visual Studio Excel environment. Yes, yes, yes. Whenever we made the changes, that will affect the original Microsoft Excel that is installed in our computer, that is available in our computer. Now, as you see from the properties window, now the properties window will be changed. The designer has chosen a default name from the new list object. So there is a new list object that is available in this one. So designer has to use a default new project. We could edit it, but in this example we keep the default name as a list one. So this is a default name that is used as a list one, but we can also change the list object as a different list. For example, if I want to create this table as a student, so we have to use the student or the student, but in this case it is available as a list one. Now, this is the code. Then let's look at the code that is used behind this worksheet. This coding I will do after the break. So let's take a break right now, then move to the coding part. So let's take a break, then move to the coding part of this one. Hello, are you able to hear me? Hello, 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 hello. Are you able to hear me, Larry? Hello, are you able to hear me, Larry? Uh, Larry, are you able to hear me right now? My voice is audible to you, Larry? Okay, okay, Larry. So let's start with the session. Let's come back from the break. Let's start the session again. So in the last in the before the break, we have studied about this one. Now let's take a look at the code that is used behind this worksheet and make some simple changes to it. That means this is a, we can say, the designer view that is designed by the designer. Now let's see what is the main coding that is used inside or in behind this code. So let's talk about the coding part that is available of this worksheet, that is the Excel worksheet environment. So let's take a code behind this worksheet and make some simple changes into it. So for making the for look at the code, so first of all you have to right click with the sheet or right click on the sheet1.cs in the solution explorer. So go to the solution explorer, click on the sheet1.cs. As I said, is that this contains the coding. So when you right click with this one, there is an option that is available that is known as the coding part, and choose the view code. So when you click on this one, then choose the view code. We are going to briefly illustrate two VSTO features, that is the action pane and the list object data binding. So there are, when you right click on this one and then when you select the view code, there are two parts, or there are two illustrations that is used with the VSTO feature. That one is the action pane, and then next is the list object data, that is the list object data binding. So there are two parts of the VSTO features. One is the actions pane feature and one is the list object data binding feature. We will declare a Windows form button as a member variable of the class and call it my button. So we will declare a Windows form button. So there is a Windows form button that is used in this one as a member variable of the class and call it as a my button. So there's a window form button that is used in this one, and there is a my button that is used with this one. So there is a my button that is used as a member variable of the class and call it as a my button. In the startup event, so there is a startup event that is used as we have studied about the startup events. We will show that the button in the document action task pane of Excel by adding to the action pane control collection. So whatever the action pane control collection that is used in this one, that is a part of the action pane control collection. Doing so will cause the Excel to show the document action task pane. So whenever we right click on this one, we choose the view code. So there is a coding part that is used in this one, and there are two parts of the VSTO that is used in the coding part. One is the action panes, that is what is the action that is taken out, that is the action pane. The next is a list object data binding, that is what is the list object, that is a data binding, that is a part of the data binding. We will declare a Windows form button as a member variable of the class and call it my button. So doing so will cause the Excel to show the document actions task pane and display our button. We will also handle the click event of the button. So there is a click event of the button that is also used, and when button is clicked, we will use the data that is used behind the list around to a randomly generated data table. So when we click on this one, so there is a random generated code that is also accessible in this one. That is a part of the data table, and this is the code that is generated out. So this is the view code of the CS or sheet 1. So that is the VSTO customization that adds a control to the document action task pane and data binds a list object control to a data table. So this is a coding that is showing that what is the main coding behind the CS1 or the sheet1.cs, and what is the how this coding will be used in this one. So let's start with this coding. This is a full-fledged coding that is used in this one. Now, first of all, the same header file, that is the using system, that is this is the first header file. Now, tell me, Larry, why we use this header file as I explained you in the today's class. So, what is the main use of the using the systems header file? Can you tell me, Larry? My question is to Larry. Why we use this using systems? No, I agree with you. So what is the use of the header file? Why we include the header files in the coding part? Okay. Then next is the using system.data. So what is the use of the system.data? What kind of data? Okay. And what about the variables? If I want to declare a variable, so the variable will come in the data or not? Okay. What about the next line? That is a using system.drawing. What is the what is the usage of the next line? Okay, for drawing purpose, that is a mathematical drawing as well as a scientific drawing, both works. Okay, what about the next line? That is using system.windows.forms. Larry, what about the next line? That is using system.windows.forms. Hello. Okay. That means this line is used, that is how to use the forms or how to generate the forms in the Windows using the system environment. That's why it is using system, then dot, then Windows, then forms. That means how the forms will be generated in the Windows part, that is a part of the system that is using the systems, right? The next line is using Microsoft.Visual Studio.Tools.Application.Runtime. Can you tell me the meaning of this line? And These tools are also used as a runtime, not at the compile time, but these are used as a runtime, right? Now, what is the difference between the runtime and the compile time? Question is clear to you? What is the difference between the runtime and the compile time? I'm talking about the compile time and the runtime. One is a compile time, that means when the code is running, when the code is compiling, whenever we convert the code into the 0 and the 1, that is a bits, that means a compiling. Alright. And runtime means when the code is executing, when we generate the output from the code, that is a runtime. Alright. Okay. What about the next line? That is using Excel equals to Microsoft Office dot interop dot Excel. Okay, so in this coding we are going to use the Microsoft Office Excel coding. That's why we're using the Excel equals to Microsoft Office dot Excel, right? Then the next line is Office, the same we are using the Microsoft Office dot core, so that's why we are using the Microsoft dot Office dot core. And Larry, where were you in the last classes? Okay, okay, okay. Means you enjoyed the Christmas as well as the New Year. Okay, so Happy New Year, Larry. Okay, today is the first day in the office after holidays. So it is boring or interesting? So next part, that is using this one, that is a namespace Excel workbook 1. That is the next part, next coding that is used in this, that is a namespace Excel workbook 1. The same coding or the same function we are using in this one, that is a public partial class sheet 1. So there is a public, then there is a partial, then there is a class sheet 1. Sheet 1 is the object, or sheet 1 is the name of the class, that is the class sheet 1. Then there is a public partial, then button, then my button equals to new button. So my button is also a variable that is declared, that contains the output of the new button function. So whenever we are using the new button function, the output of this new button function is going into the my button, that is also a part of the button. Then data table, that means the table is a variable that is a part of the data table. Then private void sheet 1 startup, the same coding will be used, the startup coding will be used for this one, that is the private void sheet 1 startup. Then there is the object sender event argse, again the startup event will be used, and again the two variables or two arguments are used in this one is the sender, one is the event argse. So one argument is the sender, one argument is the event argse, right? Then in this there are three parts, or in this function there are three lines that is available, that is a my button dot text equals to data bind, that is a my button dot text that is used as a data bind, that is a part of the data bind, that is a my button dot text. Then my button dot click, that is plus equals to new event handler, that is a my button click. So whenever we are using the my button dot text, so whatever the text that is generated, that is used as a data bind, that is a text. So my button dot text that is used, or that is taking the text as a data bind. Then my button dot click, so whenever we click there is an event that is handled, and the event name that is available when we click, that is a my button underscore click. Then globals, then dot this works workbook dot action panes dot controls dot add dot my button. So again, this is the coding that is used with this one, that is a global this workbook. That means globally it is used as a this workbook. Then action panes, then controls, then add my button. That means this is used as a globally. Then this workbook, that is it is used as a this workbook, that is it is running on this workbook only. So this is available as a my button dot click, that is plus equals to new dot event handler, that is a my button underscore click. Then the global dot this workbook dot action pane dot controls dot add my button. That means this control will be added as a my button. So my button is a name of the button that is added as a control, that is added as a action pane in the startup event. Then void my button underscore click, that is this is the definition of this my button underscore click. Again there are two arguments that is used. One is the sender, one is the event args e. Then list one dot data source, that is equals to the null. So list one dot data source, that means the data source is also available as a part of the list one. So that is the list one dot data source, that is equals to the null. Null means there is no data source that is available as a list one. Then table equals to new data table, that means the table equals to new data table. So the table content is also used as a new data table, that is a part of the table. Then the random function or the random variable r will be used, that contains the output of the new random. So whatever the new random object that is used, or whatever the new random function that output will be generated, that output will be stored in the r variable. Now it is using the for loop. So it will continue with the for loop, that is for int I equals to 0, I is less than 4, I plus plus. Then there is a table dot columns dot add, that is a call that is used as this one, that is available as this one.